Welcome, everyone, to the Socket podcast. Today, I'm joined by a friend of mine, Catherine Gibel of Less is More Organizers. Welcome, Catherine. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Can you share with our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Catherine. I live in the western suburbs of Chicago with my husband. We've been together for 16 years last week.
Nice.
And
Congratulations.
thank you. And together we have our little boy, Harrison. He's 6 and he just started kindergarten.
Oh, my
Um,
goodness.
my background is in mental health, actually. So
Hmm.
for almost a decade, I worked in the developmental disabilities field. I did direct care, case management, crisis intervention, and individual and group therapy. And then about 1 year into new motherhood, I had a little bit of a change of heart. And that's when I shifted my career and I became a professional organizer. Like Cathy said, I've been with a company called Less is More for the last 5 years. And for the last 3, I've been leading the Chicago Western Suburbs branch.
That's
And
awesome.
we've loved our life in the suburbs the last couple of years. Really happy with where we ended up. It's been
That's
great.
awesome. That's great. Well, and I know organization is not necessarily my strength. If you listen to Socket, you know that I definitely count that as one of my weaknesses. And my dad always says, and I don't know if it's from him directly or something else, that you can either work on your weaknesses and have okay weaknesses, or you can work on your strengths and have superb strengths. So
Mm.
I've always chosen to try to delegate the weaknesses and say, you know what, organization, not my thing. And I have people that are on my team that help with a lot of that, which is just saves the day for me every day. So when we first jumped on the call, I made mention of your rainbow books behind you and how pretty that looked.
Hey, well, thank you. And like I told you, right? Disclaimer, this is my corner of the office, but this is also a system that works for me. I share the office with my husband. We think and work and organize very differently. So it's definitely something that we have to um, compromise and work on. Yeah.
I understand that compromise is definitely, I think about that every night when Jason and I watch a show that neither I would necessarily pick or he would necessarily pick. It's just a compromise, right? We've
Uh-huh.
got his shows, my shows, and our shows, which I'm sure a lot of couples do. It's not that I don't
Yes.
enjoy our shows, we do, but I was thinking about creating a day. We live together now, we have for the past year, creating a day where instead of it being date night, because we basically spend every night tonight or together, it should be undate night where, listen, you can go downstairs, I'm going to go up, so you want to go watch baseball, I'll watch my Netflix, and that we have a planned night per week where we don't spend it together and we can watch whatever we want.
Yes, I love that. And we've been doing some of that as well, just because you're spending so much time together at home and you do feel a little bit of that pressure. Like, well, if I'm not working and the kid is in bed, like I should be spending time with you, but I feel like I need to be alone.
Yeah,
So we've got this set up. He's playing guitar in the basement and I'm upstairs, reading or reorganizing furniture at 9 o'clock
yeah,
at night.
that sounds like
Best
something
time to
you
do
would
it.
do.
Yeah.
I have one example of one of the toughest things that I've heard of during the whole quarantine thing. Well, not toughest, it's not a health issue, but one of my good friends has been dating someone for 5 or 6 years. She's got triplet 18-year-olds. He has twins and then another child. So there's six
Mm.
kids. And so I think the first week of March, they had made the decision prior that she was going to move into his house with her triplets who were never home, senior year of high school, headed to college soon,
Mm.
and quarantine hit like 10 days after they moved in together.
Of course it did.
and now, and now 8 of them were like stuck in the house all together. And she would call me and be like, well, this was a great idea. And not that they don't get along, they do, but
Sure.
it certainly was not part of their plan for all eight of them to be in their house for that period of time together. So it's kind of humorous. Um, so, well, what we decided we were going to talk today, we've done this type of podcast with my friend Patty. We're going to go through our toss, recycle, elevate, which is part of the tenets of Socket, of trying to organize not just your stuff, but your mind, your emotions, your space, anything in your life where for toss, we're going to talk about things that you either literally need to toss, right? I need to end a relationship. I need to decrease my time with a certain person. I need to get rid of clutter, physical clutter. For recycle, it's going to be something in your life that you want to change, you want to repurpose, you want to look at it differently. And then for elevate, it's things in your life that bring you joy and happiness, and you want to do more of it. You want to plug into it more. You want to have more gratitude, more love, more connection, more time on the phone with your family, whatever it is. So I really like this exercise. I think it's really important for humans to do on a semi-regular basis. So I think we're just going to dive right in. And so I'm gonna start with you for toss. What's something in your life that you feel like you need to have less of or just get rid of altogether?
Well, I think I told you when we were talking earlier, I love that you've taken these, concepts typically associated with physical stuff and applied them to kind of the emotional, relational, mental clutter. And as I was taking myself through this exercise, I was like, dang, this is really well timed. Like I was due for a mental decluttering. So always great to see you, but this was just cherry on top of the sundae.
That's awesome.
Um, so toss. I need to toss big time, like shred it, put it in a bag, toss it, put it at the street. Um, this concept or construct of work-life balance.
Oh yeah, it's bullshit.
It is. I mean, there's a double standard, and if we're being honest, it's sexist at its core,
Mhm.
and that could be a whole other podcast. But I just reflecting on the past year, I felt like I spent so much time and effort and energy trying to strike this balance between family life and work when school was happening at home now.
Yeah.
I didn't have after school care. Why was I trying so hard to like bake the same cake with a whole new set of ingredients and expect the same results? It's not going to happen. So I've been working on sort of shifting how I view it, but also coming to terms with the fact that this season of life just it's requiring me to um, integrate a lot more family life into work. And what can I do to, stay motivated to keep moving forward, to add continue to add service and value to my clients while I'm supervising a math lesson with 26-year-olds on Zoom, like virtually sitting next
Right.
to me. Yeah.
Right. With 26-year-olds, not 26-year-olds, right? With
Yes,
the
yes,
little
yes.
ones, right? Yeah. Well, and I think that's such an important topic to discuss and toss, right? The expectation that I can manage all of that as a working mother, even as a mother who stays at home and has a couple of kids and there's multiple things going on, no matter what part of your life you're in, this year has been extraordinarily more difficult because of the things that have happened. And whether or not you're in a pandemic or not, I think life balance is a really challenging thing to assume that you're going to be able to figure it out one day and be like, I've
Mhm.
got it, right? And I've got it and I'm always going to have it. And I think you can go through phases of your life where you're like, I'm doing pretty well. right? I'm 59.61. Or 49.51. I'm somewhere in this kind of happy range. But as soon as something, goes awry, or you have an issue with work, or a struggle with your child, or something going on in a relationship, more of your energy is going to have to go into that bucket. And to then, on top of whatever you're going through, feel guilt or shame or anything about the bucket that has to be lightened is madness, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it really is something that when we logically talk that through, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, of course I wouldn't be so down on myself because I get behind in my emails when my child really requires more of my time for X, Y, or Z reason. But it's it's a little bit harder of a practice than sometimes we think, to give ourselves that grace.
It absolutely is. And one of my mentors always says this, and I love it so much because I feel like it's applicable to so many different areas of life, but it's your gut always knows, it's your mind that starts the negotiation.
Right, right. It
Right.
is,
And
it's
you
true.
nailed it on the head. I feel like, Catherine, if you're being honest with yourself, you never had that balance. I think it was more trying to have a little bit of control in a time that felt especially out of control.
Yep.
It's that guilt of I'm letting somebody down.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. It's definitely a practice for sure.
It's interesting. I think we could create a whole new list of things I have control over,
Mm,
things I absolutely do not have control over and will never have control over, and things in the I might have control over this at some point, but for right now, it's still up in the air, right? I think if we could put that in that list, and as soon as we get our minds right doing that little spinning wheel where we just keep thinking of something over and over and over again, you refer back to that list and you're like, yep, things I cannot control. And so this does not serve us well if it's not something that we can control.
yeah.
And many times when we feel a little out of control, and with your background, I know you know this, there are some things that we can control. We can take good care of ourselves. We can drink enough water. We can get exercise. We can work our hardest to get enough sleep. We can be kind. We can foster good relationships. There's so many things we do have control over. And my thought process, or what I do, is when I feel out of control, is I try to swing the pendulum back to the categories that I can control and make sure that I'm doing those as well as possible.
Yes. The things that you can for sure count on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good one to toss. The expectation of perfection in life balance.
Yes.
Gone.
Yes. If you see me do it, you have me on video now. You can
Right. If I ever
play
see
me
you
back
right
to
now, I'm gonna be
myself.
like, do you need to listen to our podcast again, Catherine? All right. Well, let's move on to the recycle category. What
Yeah.
are you finding in your life that you're trying to shift, change, repurpose, rethink?
So my toss and my recycle are related. Of course they are. I like
That's very
efficiency.
organized of you.
Right? Least surprising thing I'm going to say today. Uh, but my therapist asked me this recently, and it was one of those like you lean back in the chair and you look back and you're like, oh, okay, okay.
You're bringing it
Um,
today.
we're going there today. Okay. She said, Catherine, why do you feel like you need to earn your rest?
Oh
Why?
gosh.
Right?
Yeah. Like you have to prove to someone that it's okay that you're not being uber productive for an hour.
Or why is it well, a maybe, or when I get A, B, and C done? She's
Mhm.
like, there's always going to be things to do. Um, and you're a planner. Why aren't you working this into the fabric of your day?
Mhm.
Again, why isn't it something that you're doing. It shouldn't be a maybe,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I have to rethink that a little bit. And if I'm being honest, again, some of that is rooted in guilt. It's time away from being a wife, a
Hmm.
mom, an employee. It's time away from my clients. And for me also, it's sort of a like a generational pattern or idea that like rest is weak.
Yeah.
Rest is for the lazy. Rest is
Yeah.
something you do when you're dead. Um,
Right.
so I've been playing around with this idea for a couple weeks, just thinking about what does that look like for me right now. And right now, it looks like hard boundaries on when I check and answer text messages, when I check and answer emails,
Yeah.
um, limits on checking social media, and also only doing it at certain times of the day. I had noticed if I was posting right before bed and sort of really involved with that, it just sent my head spinning.
Yeah.
And I started going down this like comparison route, which inevitably leads to that whole you start doubting yourself. Not the kind of mood you want to be in before
No.
going to bed. And then getting more sleep. This past year, I was horrible about getting to bed at a reasonable hour or getting to bed at a consistent time every night. Um, I've been doing that for like 2 or 3 weeks now, and I feel a difference. I just do.
Our bodies, I did a whole podcast on sleep. I
Mm,
mean, our bodies it needs sleep. And I mean, we're created to need sleep and rest.
yeah.
And I know it's interesting because I'm divorced and because I got divorced when my kids were 3 and 4 and we had 50-50 custody. I mean, obviously there's a ton of, you know, tough parts about that and difficult
Yeah.
things that come along with that territory. But what it also does, if you have a good co-parent, is it magically creates space for you that you never would have had as a partnered couple with children. Um, and so, again, not that I necessarily would have elected this, but in my life, it was like every other weekend I had to myself. And every other, 2 days of the week, like I could go out with a girlfriend. I could go to the movies by myself. I could go eat at a restaurant and go home and go to bed at 8 o'clock. And that was a luxury that I at first felt extremely guilty and weird about. And at some point I was like, hey, this is my life. Like I might as well enjoy this part, you know. And now that I'm in partnership with someone, Jason and I've been together for almost 5 years ago, or 5 years now, we came together as two healthy, happy individuals. And so we came together with certain boundaries already set for ourselves. Like he was like, hey, every once in a while, I'm just going to tell you I'm going to go camping for a weekend and go by myself. I'm like, well, every once in a while, I'm going to go to the beach by myself, right? Or every once in a while I'm going to do this. Like we don't ask each other permission. We might say, hey, I'm planning on this. Does this weekend or that week better, work better for me to be gone? But we actually carve out time for ourselves where we're spending by ourselves to
Mm,
get some of that restorative rest. And because we don't have to co-parent together technically for our children, my boys are 17 and 18, right? They can stay home alone. They don't need to be watched all that much anymore. And his son is 14. But we're not making those decisions together. It's not like with me leaving, I'm now putting all of the parenting on Jason because Sam's not technically my son. He's my stepson and of course care about him and a part of raising him to some degree, but it's still not ultimately my responsibility. So it's interesting. It really is interesting. And I think it has helped me not feel guilty about that time and know that I'm a better human. I'm a better mother. I'm a better employer. I'm a better chiropractor. I'm a better mom that runs the branch. I have more patience. feel better. And so the benefits of that, if you can get through the guilt and understand and know, like logically, you know, you shouldn't feel guilty about that.
Hmm.
But it's hard. It is hard when you know you're taking time away from what you feel like your responsibilities are.
Right. No, it definitely is. And like I was saying before, right? Like my gut knows this. It's my brain that's like, well, but no, it absolutely has made a difference. And I have to remind myself of this as well. And I know you can relate. We're in helping professions. We're
Yep.
providing services to others, and we can't give all that we want to if we aren't taking that time to step back, process, rest.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you like? What are the top three things that you like to do that you consider rest, taking a break?
Besides moving furniture, I know that sounds funny,
That's all right.
but I do find that calming. It's not calming for the other people living with me, but it's
My God,
calming for
mom's
me.
moving furniture again.
Right. I enjoy running.
Okay.
So like seeing that snow and ice melt and the sun come out.
You're like,
I'm fortunate to have a treadmill in the basement, but if I'm honest, I'm not a treadmill runner. Like I need a vision. I need to somewhere to go.
yep.
So I'm excited to start running outside again. I enjoy being creative with my hands. So cooking, I like. I also like drawing, painting,
Mm,
calligraphy. That gets me out of my own head. It's calming and
nice.
restful. And I think I've told you this before. I know a lot of people have picked up like puzzling
Yeah.
during the pandemic. So there's
Yep.
always a puzzle in progress somewhere in the house.
The first puzzle that I bought for Jason and I to do, I clearly don't know much about puzzling. I picked this, we love sea turtles. I picked this
Mm.
beautiful sea turtle, and it has, the blues, deep blues and turquoise blues of the Caribbean Ocean with this gorgeous sea turtle in the middle of it. Well, it was 1,000 pieces, and it's a pretty kind of small, in my opinion, small puzzle for 1,000 pieces. So the pieces were really small,
Mm.
and 65-70% of it is blue. And so we get, the sea turtle done, and then we're trying, and we were like, man, this is really hard. And then we realize on the back it actually has A1s, A2s. And so at some point we're like,
Oh,
okay, listen, I guess we're cheating, but they do have this on the back, and it's just all freaking blue. And there's no,
right.
was it possible? So it took a long time to do, even with flipping them over and sorting them that way. But at the end, when we put the last little piece in, it was very
Okay. So
satisfying.
satisfying to put that last piece in. But of
Yeah.
course, me, I'm always like, is there a possibility you've lost a piece, right? Like, how heartbreaking is that? You're waiting for that last piece moment. You're like, oh gosh, I don't have it.
Right. I know. And then it's like just like undone. I would draw it. I would like get like some sort of foam
Oh,
board,
that's
cut
a
it
good
out,
idea. Yeah.
draw. You're a painter. You could do that, right? Somehow I'd freaking get that done because that would drive me a little
Just
insane.
color it in. It's done.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll move on to the last one.
Yeah.
Elevate. What in your life do you need to spend more time doing? You just talked about resting, but that was in a
Yes.
kind of recycling way. But
Uh-huh.
what do you need to give more of your energy to?
I need to give more energy to fun, specifically in partnership with my husband. So we have a lot of fun as a family. Like we laugh our butts off every single day.
That's great.
Um, but our time together this past year has definitely been more limited. And I feel like a lot of the conversations, if they're not about like parenting or work, it's logistics. It's like, can you
Yeah.
take him at this time this day? Can I go to work at this time? Just kind of constantly reworking and figuring out our schedule.
Yeah.
So this past week, we celebrated our dating slash engagement anniversary. We don't
Nice.
celebrate Valentine's Day, but we
Yeah.
celebrate that. And I took out, um, I call it like our time capsule. So we went to college together, and I think
Okay.
it was either the day before or the day of graduation. I decided to go to the library and just squeeze those last few dollars out of my tuition and print all of our instant message conversations
Oh my
that
goodness.
we had before we started dating and like a few after. It's like over 100 pages.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I don't form like strong emotional attachments to many physical things, but like
Yeah.
this is like comedy gold. It's so good. It's so
That's
good. And I
awesome.
should scan it and save it in a
Yeah.
better way considering
Right.
what I do, but at least I have it. So
Oh
we
my
were
gosh.
flipping through and of course laughing, but it was just such a nice reminder of what those kind of carefree days felt like.
Yeah.
And like, obviously, our life is never going to look like that again. That's not a bad thing. But what can we do to sort of like reintroduce some of that lightness
Yeah.
and fun and carefreeness,
Yep.
still while still in the middle of a pandemic. So we're
And
brainstorming
raising a 6-year-old
and
and
raising
and both working and managing a household.
yeah.
I mean, it's a lot, right? I mean, it is a lot to try to process all at one time and still carve out that space for, oh, we're going to act like, we're in college again, or we're going to reconnect on that level as opposed
Mhm.
to the day-to-day, trudging through the day-to-day stuff and the schedule and the logistics like you talked about.
Yeah.
So I think that's so smart. I think it's really easy for couples, especially with younger kids, um, to get so caught up in that day-to-day life that years go by and the kids are now, teenagers and wanting their own space, and they don't need to be, you can go to the store without them, without putting them in the car. And that was very liberating, by the way. The first time I went to CVS, of all places. I lived really close by. We needed milk or something, I don't know. And I think my boys were maybe, I don't know, 10 and 11, 11 and 12, something like
Mm.
that. And I'm like, all right, guys, I'm going to go to CVS. You have your phones. Here's the house phone. Don't do anything. Don't answer the door. Don't turn on the microwave, right? Nothing. You just do nothing, right? And I was gone for all of 9 minutes because it was like a minute away. And I got back and I'm like a little anxious. And I get back and they're sitting on the same place in the couch playing the same game on their DSs or whatever they had back then.
Mhm.
And I remember calling my best friend and going, why didn't you tell me about this magicalness of leaving your kids at home? That was awesome. And then as it kind of, kept going, once they get their licenses,
Mm.
I mean, I remember like every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday night, if I had the boys, depending on the schedule with my ex-husband, I'd have to drive them to martial arts. And then 45 minutes, I'd have to pick them up and bring them home. And every evening that they had it, and then normally they would do Sunday, Saturday, they at least do like 3 or 4 days a week. It was like a 2.5, 3 hour process between the driving and the getting ready and the waiting and then coming home. And all of a sudden all that was lifted. So it does get easier as the kids do get older. You have
Right?
to tackle other issues, of course, and some of those are super fun. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's really smart, really, really smart to be intentional about making sure you're having those connections with your partner, um, at a deeper level than, who's gonna cook dinner, or who's gonna take our son to soccer.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if it's just carving out a little bit of time, like I know he's on a campaign right now to get me to buy into this getting an electric skateboard. Um, he has one that was a
Okay.
pandemic purchase.
Yep.
But he's like, I feel like we could have so much fun just like skateboarding through the neighborhood. I was like, one of us needs to remain injury free so the ship can stay afloat.
For sure.
Maybe if you get me something with like a handle,
Yeah.
we can talk.
Yes. Well, Jason got himself, have you heard of a one wheel?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Oh yeah.
that was an option. And I was like, I prefer the skateboard.
So he went back and forth because the suckers aren't cheap, right?
No.
And he saw it and he was like, he used to be a skateboarder.
Okay.
And he came into my office. He was like, oh my God, I have to show you something. I don't know that I'd seen him that excited in a really long time. And he showed it to me. He goes, but it's this much money. And that's ridiculous. Like, I don't need this. Blah, blah, blah. Next day he comes down. He's like, I have not bought myself anything in 20 years that is
Mm.
just for me. And this is the first thing that's like sparked my interest. And it's awesome and all this stuff. Next day he's like, oh, that's just too much. Next day he's like, I have not bought myself anything. I'm like, Jason, just buy it, just get
Yeah.
it. So it took 3 or 4 weeks to come. He was like a kid at Christmas waiting for the UPS man to come. It comes, he puts it together. The kids and him go out and kind of get used to being on it. It's a little more challenging to kind of
Yeah.
get on it and get off of it. And 25 minutes later, I drove him to the Plainfield Edward Hospital because he completely tore his ACL, tore his medial meniscus, fractured his fibula, and had a tibial bone bruise.
Oh my goodness.
He took a turn a little too
Oh,
fast
that joy was so short-lived.
and he jumped off, and his knee just buckled when he hit the ground. And we're
Ouch.
driving there. I'm like, I really hope that 22 minutes was satisfying to you. So we ended up selling it. We ended up selling it to a father that he and his daughter had one, and they would go all over the place. And then his son came home from college, and of course we have it for cheaper than normal, and we have it available right now if you want to get in your car and come to South
Right.
Naperville. And so yeah, so the three of them, it's like their bonding experience. So it
Oh.
can, I'm not doing that to scare you. It can be done safely, but our experience with skateboard like technology in our home is currently banned for Jason. Uh,
Okay. Well, maybe the skateboard would be like a step down. Maybe
yeah,
something else to try. I know Andy took a good fall. He was fortunate to not break any bones, but I was
yeah.
cleaning and bandaging some deep
Oh,
wounds for about 2 weeks.
oh
Yes.
no. Yeah,
Yes.
it's you know what? I mean, it's part of life, right?
Yeah.
I'm never going to be a wrap yourself in bubble wrap and hide in the basement and don't come
Mm-mm.
out, right? I'd rather take some calculated risks and enjoy my life as opposed to being afraid of getting hurt. And when you live your life that way, every once in a while you get hurt. So
Yeah.
that's okay. You know? Our body's pretty amazing, and it tends to heal itself pretty well.
Yeah.
So, well, Catherine, thank you so much for coming on. I loved hearing your toss, recycle, and elevate, and where you are in your life and how you're processing all of that through. And I think some of these changes are going to help just bring your life to that next level that you're obviously looking for. So, organizing those different parts of your life, I think you're so good at that already. So I'm sure that you will tackle this um, with in a great way. So
Okay. Well, thank
if
you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I appreciate you sitting with me and helping me declutter my own head, something that I need to do more often.
well, I think everyone does. So it's a great practice. If anyone wants to get a hold of you, where can they reach you?
Sure. So you can find us so on Facebook and Instagram. We are Less is More Organizers, and we're also lessismoreorganizers.com.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to track me down anywhere, you can find me on my website or social media under Simply Socket. So simplysocket.com or the handle Simply Socket on all social media, wherever you want to find me. So I hope everyone has a great day, and I hope everyone takes a little moment to think about your toss, recycle, and elevate. And feel free to shoot me over an email and share those with me at Cathy@simplysocket.com. Thanks, everyone.